let's do that. Warlock. Here we go. Warlock. Affliction. Agony damage increased by 10% does not apply. Soul Rod damage increased by 30%, and Vile Taint damage increased by 40%. So, if I have Soul Rod and Vile Taint, I don't know if that really changes too much for Affliction, so I'm going to put the nothing changes. This is 30% Soul Rod damage. Yeah, I don't think that's a huge buff. This, however, is Omega Fatty Acid, Omega 3 Fatty Acid buffs. For Demonology, Demon Bolt damage increased by 20% does not apply. Fair. But, well, you know, damage increased by 25%. Soul Strike damage increased by 35%. Active Eredrune Doomguard damage increased by 35%. That's big. I think Demonology Warlock is already slept on. I think these are some very solid buffs. Huge buffs, I wouldn't say that, but definitely slight buffs. They're the highest of the slight buffs, in my opinion. It could be huge buffs. In fact, I'm so hyped on Demo right now, I'm going to put in huge buffs. Destro got Cataclysm damage and Rain of Fire damage. Nothing relevant. So, we've gone through the patch notes. The biggest winners are going to be Augmentation at Demo. Then we got slight buffs to Fire, Boomkin, and then honestly, I'm not even sure about Holier Disc. It could be in the nothing changes. Everything else for PvP, in my opinion, is pretty much irrelevant. But Demo and Ret gaining some power, and Aug even gaining some power, could be really, really interesting for not only solo shuffle, but threes, as well as things like Malagrim. So I think these are very strong changes, and I'm excited to see how it plays out. Maybe we'll see some Ret Demo return. Also, maybe we'll see some Aug Demo. You know you'd love to see it. I'd love to see it, but anyways, guys, that's the notes, that's the video. Thank you guys very much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys like these kind of videos, please leave a comment. Let me know.
Our miners had to leave their tools behind when the Nerubians attacked. Please retrieve them.
Bell notification button so you can see the videos. We're very close to 100,000 subs, so you guys can help me get there. I do appreciate it. Thanks, folks. Good night.
Botrix has correctly joined the channel.
This exclusively as their DPS rotation. Use a good term lightly there. It ended up being a DPS loss to use anything other than the smash. Of course, it's rapid fire and restore with cooldowns and dragons.
Looks like there's treasure nearby.
So let's cover that. This is an ability that you use to command your pet to deal some damage. Useful after a critical strike by the hunter. The short cooldown. And that was also an issue for hunters in vanilla. I just said that the gameplay for hunters is auto-shooting until your abilities are on cooldown, but if you were to do that, you'd find yourself on the map quite quickly. This was addressed in PC, last week, and many people are surprised to learn that misdirection was in the game as early as the Burning Crusade. This causes the threat generated from our next new attacks to stick to a friendly raid or party member, which is a huge help. This is also a sort of ability. This is why threat is still a big deal at DC. Hero's Wrath is one tanks start getting it pretty easily. DC is still tricky, and hunters bring very high value with Misdirect here, and they'll want to use that cooldown. Trap Repertoire is going to be expensive with additional not really damaging, but they do apply some hindering poisons, such as crippling to slow.
Thank you. We'll go back for the rest when the Nerubians are gone for good.
All of them, because I want this to be a general overview. I will cover the details and the major stuff. There's still some religious inspiration, which gives you and they didn't do this just by increasing the damage or covering weak spots. They did this by giving various party buffs, so some specs would fall. There's a reason to stop the player. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is really up to your preference. But moving on, reducing the cost, crowd control. They left any sort of wear on their own casters. So this covers up this fire. We'll get rid of this, which instantly resets the cooldown on all other hunter abilities, sort of like the Rogue's Reparation. So rapid fire, feign death, everything. It's a crucial supporting debuff. Just makes this, which makes it efforts to increase the portion of your agility. And many raids would run one survival hunter for this day. Hunters are very well represented in diversity. You've heard from many that these mastery solutions using that stage is described as others are one, but nonetheless very powerful. Survival is also important. It's not as potent as Beastmaster, but the debuff brings valuable support. Should PvP due to their high burst damage and added control, though that won't be the most of what you see in Arena. But overall, it feels like the shoes, snipers, second look at the Burning Crusade. Of your preferences, really choice to ensure. War never changed. Since the dawn of humankind, when our ancestors first discovered each other, it's this simple cyclonic range. Still the great warrior juggernauts you've come to know and love. Sometimes it just feels good to hit things. I feel like the description of the warrior class is pretty unneeded. They're the most straightforward archetype in any RPG. Wear heavy armor, with big weapons, beat people into a pulp until they rage level up one pulp to shit talk you. I guess maybe if you're new to the game though, in World of Warcraft, they operate on the rage system. You generate rage as you hit enemies and get hit by them, and you then use this resource to fire many melee attacks. The weapons you use, and how you use them, however, depends on your specialization. Their arms tree remains to be their PvP tree, focus on improving their two-handed capabilities, as well as some debilitating effects for PvP, although they do become valuable in PvE as well, as you'll see. Fury still prefers a dual-wielding playstyle, and is the go-to for those who prefer PvE content, and protection of course bolsters their defense, but although there are up-and-comers in the tanking realm in PC, protection warriors are often seen to hold the crown of being the best single-target tank, with their wide variety of defensive-based cooldowns. For ability roll call, first up we have Victory Rush. Anytime you score a killing blow, you get some free, rangeless damage to keep the kill streak going. But do note that this is before it healed them in any way. Warrior Mobility sees an overall upgrade, the addition of the Intervene spell, which allows you to charge towards an ally and take the damage and effect of the next hostile action towards them. Mobility-wise, this is crucial for quick escapes or closing a gap when the ally is positioned favorably near an enemy. And for the most sharp, timed correctly, it can be used to take critical abilities such as Kidney Shot and just one. Warriors who've been bullied relentlessly by coward
Someone didn't get the message.
More real life rage.
These are urgent
But
resources.
you can at least hit one button instead of just AFK. Nice. And a spell reflect. Usually you can spell cast on you within the next 5 seconds. Which is pretty easy. Gives them some way to defend themselves against spellcasters of any kind. Their piece-sized brains are strained with the addition of a new shout. Commanding Shout gives you the option of increased health, like use of this or plus you have 2 hours of abilities. Specific abilities include Rampage for Fury, which after scoring a critical hit allows you to stand for 30 seconds. Swords on the other hand. But they do get the important Blood Frenzy talent, which gives your bleeds a raid-wide 4% increased physical damage taken by the enemy. So it's never a bad idea to have an arms and raid for this alone. Another important one to mention is Mace Organization. For dead procs all the time. Looking at old Warrior Arena videos in Burning Crusade, usually they'll be using Mace because it's just stupid. And Protection Warriors get Devastate, which deals some damage to the axis under taking a banana and when it's Rogue Strike for Raged Up, do something like Battle Shot as filler. This is a game changer because it's an actual damaging, no cooldown ability that you can use between dimensions, making you feel like you're doing more than just holding thread. And it makes 10 less awkward. Behind this, the shield slam increase plus damage. The Sword and Port takes the crowd back from Fury Prod as the tanking specking PC. Warriors grow a lot through Crusade. The vanilla seems to be best. This will do with Intervene. Spell Reflect help them against casters. Taking feels really nice with the addition of an actual damaging skill with no cooldown. Do very well in PvE. PvP, they're still kings due to their burst.
Looks like there's treasure nearby. And that means treasure hunting. Watch your back.
DPS or tanking. The Masters of Arcane, Frost and Fire. Ability, crowd control, damage, utility, defense, AoE, single target. Main seems to adapt to just about any situation. And you'll never find something safe.
Mission accomplished.
Spellcaster archetype.
Thank you for doing what needed to be
In World
done.
of Warcraft, they have a focus on 3 schools of magic: Fire, Frost, and Arcane, and each have their own unique effects and playstyle. And aside from being heavy damage dealers, they also bring great support to allies for use of buffs, crowd control effects, water, portals to major cities, and throughout vanilla. This they're one of the most prolific classes. Whether you choose to control and freeze your enemies through PvP and Frostry, or through raids, fire, slows them down. It's like an expansion of both PvE and PvP, and the same is true for the Burning Crusade. Spell Steal will take a beneficial magic effect on an enemy Frost Mages are incredibly bursty. The downside is that they stay stationary and expose themselves. This can be obtained at the end of the Frost Tree. It's a pet that will not only attack your target, but also be Ice lands and High Burst. Frost Mages grow even stronger than they once were in Vanilla Classic, which is hard to believe. Pisses me off because I'm a warrior. Icy Veins is a DPS cooldown for Frost Mages. They added in patch 2.3, casting speed, and preventing pushback for 20 seconds. So, another ability that may or may not be in the game at release. They do TPC Classic. Arcane Mages find a slow healing, which works in 3 parts. Use strokes, casting speed, increases the percent with low cooldown. Rare Mages skill, you're pretty much a goner. Steal some damage and disorients enemies in a cone area to give you a bit more CC to respect that starved of CC. Overall, Mage just categorically improves in just about every aspect in both PvE and PvP. PvP in particular with some added danger and utility with spell steal, or damage on the move with Ice Lance, control with Water Elemental, and slipperiness with invisibility. Fire and Arcane are the PvE specs. Arcane taking over when they get their tier 5 minutes. Whole process is unmatched for me. Still no specializations for situations. There's nothing to crossover on either side. Regardless, the mage is still as strong as ever, and you really can't go wrong in PvE or PvP. This video if you're enjoying it so far. First healer on your list, of course, has to be Grace. Instead of weeping spells of Frost, Fire, and have a selection of weapons and shadow spells. Any healer. Absorbs, heals over time, group heals, quick heals, big heals, and powerful buffs makes them adapt to just about any situation. And let's not forget those who dabble in the dark side. Instead of healing, extra damage over time effects, debuffs, and bursty damage spells makes them quite dangerous in PvE and PvP. Still being able to pop out and throw out some heals in a pinch. Just about the only thing that a mage can't do. Holy is your straight healing specialization. Sole purpose is to increase raw healing throughput and mana returns. Discipline is more of a supportive tree, causing many crucial buffs for increased defense, making them more appealing in the realm of PvP. And Shadow, as described, for 6 life. Soldiers have an extensive collection of Linkin Park albums. Cast a Spell is the first new ability on our list, removing one beneficial magic effect from enemies and one harmful magic effect on allies within a large radius, even being strong enough to pop immunities such as Paladin Bubbles or Mage Ice Blocks. Reward, formerly exclusive to dwarves, is now baseline for every priest of both factions. Of course, making the target immune to the next fierce spell. This would seem to be too important to be restricted to just one race, so I guess screw you all the dwarves out there. The Mending is a buff that you apply to a target, and upon that target taking damage or instantly heal, the spell bounces to another raid member at random, up to a maximum of 5 times. Binding Heal is a low-threat flash heal for yourself and your target, having quite a high mana cost. And Shadow Fiend makes its debut. When used, you summon a Shadow Fiend to attack your target, and it restores mana to the priest with each hit. They also received the powerful Shadow Word Death, which is their execute. It's instant heavy shadow damage, only usable on targets below 20% health. Pain Suppression is a talent that's found in the Discipline tree, reducing damage taken by the target, and also increasing Dispel resistance. And an important passive they have is their improved Divine Spirit talent, which gives some extra spell power based on the target's spirit stat. Most raids will run one Discipline Priest for that alone. And we have Circle of Healing, which is exclusive to Holy Priests, and it's an instant cast heal to a target and all nearby party members, which is spammable, but you will run into mana issues. Lastly, Vampiric Touch is exclusive to Shadow Priests. It's a new damage over time that also debuffs the target, giving mana regeneration to the priest and all party members based on shadow damage. It's extremely important, and along with their Shadow Weaving debuff, which causes your target to take 10% increased shadow damage at 5 stacks, and Misery, which is 5% for all spells, Shadow Priests become crucial in every Tomb of Burning Crusade due to the added support. If you've ever heard the term Mana Battery before, it's probably referring to Shadow Priests. They're strong as ever, with Holy being the main PvP healing spec. This discipline brings out the sun that favors PvP-oriented players due to its defensive capabilities. Shadow, as described, is great in PvE due to its support, still dealing decent damage. In PvP, it's kind of hit or miss. You still don't have dispersion or any movement increases, which makes you very vulnerable if you get trained. They're dependent on good healers such as mages or rogues.
Freezing
But
trap.
on the flip side, they do no
Camouflage.
faces, and their silence is untradeable.
Mage. Shield.
5 seconds of guaranteed
Greater
heals,
invisibility.
45 seconds.
Light
That's
light.
insane.
Big dark light.
So silence is
Nature's
not
witness.
potential. You just need to support
Wings.
Fire ice.
Icy veins.
Walker's grace. Fire and leather. Lock wall. Glacial fire. Vengeance shield. Black wall down. Hammer justice. Demonic circle. Glacial fire.
You earn with match. Discover cashback match.
All night.
Surge.
Glacial spike. Lightning lasso. Alter time down. Icy games down.
on the list. Warlock has gained a reputation.
Cooking. Last wing. Fenning demon.
Reuse is very powerful. Very straightforward damage from the hard touch. Damage over time effects.
Mage.
Debilitating
Shield.
curses, wide variety of demons at their command.
Freezing trap.
Supportive spells such as Healthstone to heal allies, or Soulstone to revive them, or the ritual of summoning
Liquid
for
magma.
transmutation. Warlock is a great
Thunderstorm.
combination of support
Greater
and
invisibility.
damage. Their affliction tree
Kill
focuses
grounding.
on improving curses
Earth elemental.
and debilitating
Pulverize.
effects, or focus
Nature's
on
witness.
primordial spells to give their enemies a slow but steady death. Demonology is a
Stormkeeper.
very steady
Mage. Freezing shield. Counterspell. Retreat. Magi. Vengeance shield. Return spell.
True shot.
One shot.
Kill grounding.
Shifting power. Liquid magma. Counter. Stormkeeper. Aim shot. Dragon.
Surge.
Ice bomb. Justice. Shield. Spell steal. Spell repeat time. Spell steal. Spell steal. Divine throw. Mind blast. Pulverize. Final record. Lightning lasso. Icy shot.
Tyrant. Tyrant.
Icy Vengeance shield down. Freezing trap.
One issues you may run into in vanilla is that you have the potential for high damage. Due to threat, sometimes you just have to slow down. Soul Shatter is a 5-minute spell that moves 50% of your aggro power increase for 50 yards. Incinerate is a new damage spell, dealing some moderate damage baseline. It's a bonus to targets affected by your immolate. For talents, we have Unstable Affliction for the Affliction tree. This is another dot that deals some moderate damage, and more importantly, some heavy damage. 5-second silence if it's dispelled.
Hammer of light. Coil.
Load up your
Aim
target
shot.
defense. Throw
Spell
this on
steal.
top of
Freezing
it.
trap. Spell steal.
You also get
Aim
a
shot.
passive
Counter
support,
spell. Final
such as
psychic
Ice,
scream.
which causes your
Success.
dots to reduce physical damage done by the target by 5%. And
Glacial
Malediction, which
spike.
improves your curse of
Hammer of
elements.
justice.
Demonology warlocks get a new demon called the Felguard. A powerful demon having the ability to cleave and to intercept stuff in addition to
Liquid
its high
magma.
damage. Destruction warlocks pick up
Nature's
shadow.
witness.
Malevolent.
Ice. Tremor.
Kill grounding.
Wind.
True shot. Kick Ray. Wings.
Divine Shield.
Its uses. The unique thing with Warlocks is that they tanked certain fights in the expansion, but overall demonology went down as being a PvP spec paired with Affliction. You may have heard the term SL/SL Warlocks. This is referring to a talent build that gives you Siphon Life and Souling. The combination of steady damage, insane tankiness, and high self-healing makes them very dangerous in PvP. You can bet money that they'll be one of the most prolific classes.
Ashes, Glacial Strike, Nature Sand Down, Earth Rod, Lock Wall, Aim Shot. PS, Aim Shot. Big Heal, Lock Wall Down, Ice.
Trades and
Success. Windshield down, Glacial Strike.
Yes, tanking and healing.
Dark Passage, Shield, Demonic Circle, Aim Shot. Penitence, Malevolence, Penitence, Sanctuary, Liquid Magma, Binding Shard,
Wings.
Singularity, Minority Big Heal, Aim Shot, Ice Gaze Down, Aim Shot,
Surge.
Ash Nazareth, Aim Shot,
Kill grounding. Trinket use. True shot.
Vanilla never seemed to be one of the weakest classes overall. In a community who's obsessed with min-maxing, a class that can do everything but isn't the best at it made them into one of the least represented.
Magi.
Vengeance Shield down, Shear. Main Shot, Shield down, Chaos Shot, Mage, Shield. True Shot down, Divine Shield, Chaos Bolt.
Yes, for healing, PvE,
Baking Cookies.
One of the reasons for this, at least for healing, is that
Bubble
most of
down,
the
Hammer of Justice, Chaos Bolt, Chaos
heals over
Bolt.
time on it.
Wings.
Avenging Wrath,
This is true for any class with HUDs, but I felt the most
Ashes.
appropriate to mention in the Druid category
Inferno.
because after all,
Chaos
it's
Bolt.
a niche
Forbearance Sound,
time class. So removing this restriction alone was
Filter, Rebuke, Alter Time,
more so.
Final Reckoning,
New heal over time called
Divine
Life Bloom
Tone, Aim
is
Shot,
also
Chaos
used
Bolt,
as a
Shield
tool
down,
demonstration.
Chaos
This
Bolt,
spell
down,
will
Arcane
give
Torrent,
some more power in PvP. It's
Chaos Bolt,
potency.
Frost Nova, Hammer of Justice, Aim Shot, Hammer of Justice, Ashes,
Kill grounding.
Sack Down, Lay on Hand,
Surge.
Chaos Bolt, Shadow, Restore, Danger Cell, Chaos Bolt, Chaos Bolt, Chaos Bolt, Nature Down, Mage, Shield, Aim Shot, Chaos Bolt, Aim Shot, Chaos Bolt, Cookie, Mirror Image, Singularity,
Kill grounding.
Dark Pass, Spell Mortal Coil, Chaos Bolt, Justice, Chaos Bolt,
Trinket use.
Dark Glare,
basically a rebuild.
Kill grounding.
Shield, Mind Blood,
Tyrant. Tyrant.
damage, but also breaks
Drain
and
Light,
damages.
True shot.
Chaos Down, Arcane Spear, Chaos Bomb,
Wings.
Chaos Bomb, Chaos Bomb, Chaos Bomb,
They bring some good utility with their very fire. So that the target will be hit by both physical and spells by 3%. Earl Druids get Angle, Cat Form, deals damage and costs rage, and the Cat Form costs energy and awards a combo play. Both increase the damage that your target takes from your shred and your bleeds by 30%. Air Form has a 6-second cooldown, whereas Cat Form has no cooldown. Restoration Druids gain Tree of Life, which does several things. It increases healing to
Rebuke.
party members.
Spell steal. Aim shot. Reveal. Chaos sword.
Power infusion.
Aim shot.
Spells. The mana cost of these spells
Earthquake
also
heal.
reduced by
Breathing
20%.
trap. Pulverize.
Note that
Fire
this heal is
elemental.
not
Final
just
rhythm.
for
Stormkeeper. Chaos bone. Aim shot. Asher. Chaos bone.
Heal grounding.
classes. Anytime players, but they do hold their own. They're useful for bringing balance to fire support. Individual DPS is tricky since it's completely dependent on the player. As a complex rotation, implementing power shift, using vision such as this level 4. Great for the first and impressive things. It's more effort. I was looking for a high skill cap, love it. Barrel taking, as I've said, find a classic for certain fights. They're much more commonplace in BC, just like all these other specs. Good single target threat, but if they're not tanking, you can switch out and deal some damage. For example, you have some 3 tank boss fights. Well, if you bring 3 tank spec characters only, it's a wasted slot for the other 2 tank boss fights, unless one of those tanks is feral. And restoration is great as well, due to that tree of life buff, and remove restriction on bots. And fights that require movement, those over time will always shine. Restoration runes do well in the Burning Crusade. So overall, the Druid will 100% be the class that sees the biggest increase going from vanilla to BC. One of the least played classes to one of the most played classes, surely. It's the Jack of all trades, Master of
Please
None.
proceed.
Turned into a Jack of all trades.
Remain.
Damn. Subtlety is the answer. Next class on our list is the Rogue. Another melee class that hold a bit more decorum than the aforementioned warrior. One of 2 classes with stealth, they have the advantage of picking their fights. Combined with the wide arsenal of devastating thirsty attacks and cooldowns, they can take people out before they even have time to react. Like the Feral Druid, they operate on the energy system, which generates over time, and also the combo point system. Some abilities generate combo points up to a maximum of 5, and other more powerful abilities called finishers consume these combo points for high damage or powerful buffs. They're a dual-wielding class, preferring daggers, or maces, or swords, coating them with several different poisons that damage and cripple those on the receiving end. They're a very calculated class. Control would be the best word to describe them, almost as deadly as their vanilla counterparts. Some would say even more so, in fact. Assassination is a tree that focuses on improving your poisons and burst damage, highlights the use of daggers, whereas combat is more of a swashbuckling, in-your-face raw damage style, not as subtle as the other specializations, but it gets the job done. And lastly,
Trade has
subtlety,
overwhelmed
which is
our
still
airships,
capabilities,
but
gives
the
even
road
more
to the
control
core way
to
is
a class that's
treacherous.
already the master
Help
of
us
control.
clear the path.
Target 6 seconds. Additionally, just combo points on your target. 9 instant poison. Poison's just refusing to pass sometimes. And to cast on line spell effects for 5 seconds at a 1-minute cooldown, making them even more dangerous to casters. Assassination rogues can mutilate, which deals damage with both weapons. Combo points. Use teleports and damage. Increase damage. Reduce damage. Magnets PC review. This is only usable against stats. It needs to be very useful to do well.
The creatures along the path are quelled. Our caravans are now able to ascend to the earthen.
To be able to beat the enraged timers, final raid Sunwell. Similar to vanilla, subtlety is the main PvP spec for the calculated use of cooldowns. It's just now you have Shadow Step on top of it all, which makes it the clear frontrunner for PvP. Many people say that they're the best at PvP. Again, I don't like using that word too much, but I still wouldn't disagree with it. Search any BC Arena tier list, and you'll find subtlety in the S or A tiers usually. Assassination is sort of middle ground. For PvP competes. An issue they run into is mutilate still requires you to count your targeting BC, which gives them a strict positional requirement. In an expansion that's already unfriendly to melee, it certainly doesn't help. But it does have its place, just like all of these specializations. Overall, the rogue will be a very popular choice in Burning Crusade as it is in vanilla. One of the deadliest in PvP due to their control, if hit with many teams. And still competing for the top in PvE, at least in later tiers. They'll be very prolific throughout the expansion.
Don't wait in line. Hit the deadline with tax experts by your side. Match with an expert. File your taxes as
I
soon
have
as
calibrated
today.
my prices to be
The IRS
reasonable.
deadline is April 15th. And look your taxes to an expert today.
Your faith in the light. Paladin is the cousin of the warrior. Probably a melee class, a simply armored crusader, employs the aid of holy magic to heal allies, exercise foes, and bolster themselves. They're a support-heavy class, providing a wide variety of buffs called blessings that provide crucial aid to allies, whether it be attack power, mana regeneration, threat reduction, protection spells. In addition to this, they also hold many different auras that are party-wide and changeable on the fly to match whatever situation that they're in. They also operate on the unique seal system. These provide unique augments to the paladin's attacks, and upon using the judgment spell, are consumed for other unique effects. For example, this one returns mana when the paladin swings, and if you judge it, it copies that effect to everyone who hits that target. And the same is also true with the Seal of Light counterpart. They're the only class, other than the Druid, that are capable of all three combat roles. Holy Tree.
My directive has been fulfilled.
Whereas the Retribution specialization focuses more on offense with buffs and abilities to dish out some divine justice. And protection, as you would imagine, is the Tanking Tree, providing a wide variety of defensive buffs and threat generation improvements. This has been the design since the game's inception in vanilla. Many players have been disappointed to learn it's primarily the only paladin that was in demand. Protection paladins, unfortunately, suffer from mana issues and a lack of a ton that stops them from shining in the tank role. And Retribution, simply a lack of damage. Luckily for you though, like all of these other classes, these weaknesses have been addressed, and you have some options. First being their tongue, which is Righteous Defense. You use this on a player, and up to 3 enemies attacking that target will attack you instead. So it's kind of a roundabout way of doing it, but it is a tongue, which covers up a huge hole in their toolkit from vanilla. It is a pretty wide 20% bounce speed buff, making paladins the fastest flyers in the Outland. And Avenging Wrath, now an iconic spell for the class, also makes its debut in the Burning Crusade. In this iteration, it's a straight 30% damage buff, and the downside is that it causes forbearance, which makes it so you can't bubble yourself for a minute. It's also a magic effect, which makes it susceptible to dispel spell steal. And trust me, mages are just waiting for you to pop this thing. Spiritual Attunement is a passive that gives them mana back based on healing taken. They're designed for tanking here, obviously, but it's baseline for every spell.
I have calibrated my prices to be
And
reasonable.
interestingly enough, there are also some faction-specific spells for paladins, and even before release, these are already at the center of some controversy. The Alliance gets Seal of Vengeance, which puts on a stacking god, with the Judgment dealing holy damage, increasing per stack. The Horde, on the other hand, gets Seal of Blood, which causes attacks to deal an additional 35% weapon damage as holy damage at the cost of health, and the Judgment to deal holy damage as well. Also deals some damage to the Paladin. It is universally seen as being the superior skill, the Sword Paladin superior to Alliance Paladins by extension. Why? Well, for many reasons. Skills.
My thanks for your patronage.